Hello everyone. I am back today to do yet another name for our Advent. I am sitting at my kitchen table, so we're doing our candles this evening, or this afternoon, excuse me. My daughter is actually about to take her nap. You can probably hear some of the Frozen going on in the background. So we're gonna do this in here, that way I'm not disturbing her. And you can still, see the Christmas tree and all of that. So, but we're gonna get started with our new name. Oh, and if anybody is new here, hasn't seen any of these videos, the study is coming out of the book An Advent Devotional, Unwrapping the Names of Jesus. That is what the book looks like. So that's where I'm getting all of the studies we've done. So if you do enjoy this, I do encourage you to go back and check the other videos out, because it's been a pretty fun series so far. Alright, so we are on our 17th day of Advent, and today's name is Jesus is the True Vine. I'm excited about this one. We actually did a study in John, and it was focusing on Jesus being the vine. God being the gardener, and it's an awesome name, and it's really cool. So Jesus is the vine. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. You are the branches. John 15:1 and 5. When I was growing up, my father was an amateur viticulturalist, passionately tending to the grapevines in our backyard. I quickly bored of the tedious work, but he would spend hours in his little vineyard, pruning, twisting, tying, digging, watering, doing all he could to ensure a full harvest come autumn. Throughout Old Testament, the vine was used as a symbol of Israel, often to show how she was lacking in some way. God carefully tended his vine, protecting it from harsh elements and creating an environment for it to flourish. Yet Israel rebelled. God was just to judge her harshly, but he graciously provided another vine. In contrast to Israel, Jesus is the true vine. He is the faithful one who fulfills all that Israel failed to do. Whereas she was wild and rebellious, he was submissive and obedient. While she yielded bad fruit, he produced good fruit. In keeping with righteousness, he was in every way the epitome of all God called his people to do. And he calls us to union with him so that we may also produce good fruit. Left to ourselves, we cannot produce good fruit any more than Israel remained faithful. We are subject to the same weaknesses and sin impulses as they were thousands of years ago. By ourselves, we would go the way of rebellious Israel. So God snipped our branch from the wild vine, grafted us into his family through Jesus, and tenderly creates the opportune environment for us to flourish. If you wonder about your spiritual fruitfulness, Jesus' last conversation with his disciples before his death offers a beautiful opportunity for prayerful reflection. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. John 15:5. These were the very men who in a few hours would abandon their teacher, but afterwards repented and went on to spread the good news of Jesus throughout the world. So there is hope for anyone of us who has walked away but returns with a repentant heart. The vine dresser will prune us to produce outward fruit that demonstrates inner transformation. Surprisingly, Jesus does not call us to work hard to be more fruitful. Rather, he calls us to abide in him, to wait on him. Fruit will naturally follow for those who remain connected to him. Because his Spirit is one who produces the fruit. Galatians 5:22-25. We belong not because of what we do, but because of who he is. He is the vine. We are the branches, and he will bear fruit through us as we remain in him. As the true vine, Jesus both fulfills Old Testament prophecy and makes possible our inclusion in God's family. He sustains us, connecting us with the nourishment we need to bear fruit. He pulses out healing salve to bind our wounds when the gardener prunes us to be more fruitful. He supports us when the weight we carry seems too much to bear. Jesus is the reason we're a part of the vine. Apart from him, we can do nothing. In him, we can bear much fruit for his kingdom. We need only to abide, and he will do the rest. So that's the true vine, y'all. Like I said, I love this name. It was a really awesome study that we did in John, and one, like I said, the main focus was the vine. That was actually our, like, all of the verses that we did going through came from John 15, and it kind of like started with that first verse and went out and kept adding, but it is all about I am the true vine. Those who abide in me will bear fruit, and it talks about the pruning process, and once it's cut away, it should be tossed in the trash to be burned. So it's a whole chapter, like, addressing this scenario and this metaphor for the true vine. And it's so powerful because it's I think probably the closest that we can get to being similar, to the actual Christian walk that we have to, that we do, as we live. Because, like it says, so to start, we are on the wild vine. So that is the unruly, wild, kudzu, whatever vine, ivy that is just outgrowing, doing its thing. But if you notice, those vines are very hazardous, and they're very, they're hazardous to people, they're hazardous to animals, they choke out other wildlife, and plant foliage, and all these things. They can even destroy buildings if they get too heavy on the walls and stuff like that. So I mean, unchecked, they can be a real menace, and very dangerous, and they die quick and keep coming back, and all these things, and they will never bear any good fruit, and they will never, be of any use other than that to be wild. So he takes us, he cuts our branches from that wild vine, and then he grafts us onto his vine. So what a beautiful metaphor for our salvation, because that's literally what he does. He takes us out of the old world and brings us into his, the second we accept him into our heart. And then it goes on, to talk about we must abide in him, to bear this fruit, and about how he sends out, healing salve, as we're pruned or whatever. And it talks about in John 15 about that pruning, because that pruning is necessary. I know it almost sounds kind of counterintuitive, especially if you don't know a lot about gardening, to cut something away, because it's like, okay, well, but it's necessary. If you actually look into what pruning is, they are literally cutting away the excess, where something's, gotten too big or gotten too, whatever, the situation is, they're cutting away the excess. So that way it can be removed and gives room for new growth. So the pruning process is a very good representation of the process we have to go through as Christians, as we learn. We start out as new baby Christians, and then we grow and we learn and we get closer, and there's growing pains. There definitely is, because we have to change everything. I love how similar recovery for addiction and becoming a true Christian is, because you have to do the same thing in recovery as you do once you become a Christian. You have to change your people, places, and things. And not all of it, sometimes it just depends on where you're at in life, but usually at some point, as new Christians, we have to face certain things that we have to let go, and certain things that we, maybe certain people that we just can't hang out with anymore because they don't do right, or do what is supportive of our newfound faith. And we can't, for example, let's say that we had a group of friends that, they enjoy drinking. That's what they do. They go out and party, on the weekends and get drunk and, have a good time and all this stuff. Well, if you're an alcoholic, you can't go hang out with them. If you're a new Christian, you probably don't need to go hang out with them, because while it's okay to have a drink or something like that, I mean, I'm not by any means trying to debate that, but it's the behavior, it's the continued behavior that is not okay. And these times that they party and stuff, it could be leading to drunk driving. It could be maybe they're having an inner battle with their with alcoholism, or whatever it is, but it's a temporary fix, and we can't live that lifestyle once we become Christians, because there is no temporary fix. The only fix is God. That temporary fix goes away like in an instant, in the blink of an eye. And so God is the only one that can truly fix it. He is the only one that is the permanent fix. So we have to distance ourselves from those lives, and by no means do we turn our back on them. We always pray for them, we tell them we love them, and if they want to just go to coffee or get breakfast, great, let's do it, you know what I mean? But you have to be able to put those boundaries up and say, okay, look, not willing to cross past this is my boundary. And we have to keep those as Christians in order to keep our lives as clean as we possibly can in living for the Lord. So it's very similar, and pruning is a really great metaphor for it, because it can be painful. It can be very painful and scary to have to do that, to remove yourself from those people, places, and things, and behaviors and all of these things, because it's something we're so used to that it's a part of our daily life. So it can be difficult, but it's always for the better, and it does encourage that new growth. So it's so important. And then it says, if you abide in me and I in you, then you will bear fruit. And I love that idea, because it even says in here, while you do have to do your work as far as what it means to abide in him, which is constant intentional prayer, intentional study, devotions, finding a community that is like-minded with you, that you have somebody to walk through life with. All of these things are things that we do have to do, but as far as actually working hard, if you will, like physical labor or anything like that, none of that is required for this. He simply asks that you abide in him and you follow his teachings and what he would have you do. That's all. Which is an amazing thing to think about, because as long as we do that, then we will, continue to grow and bear that fruit for him and bear that fruit through him for the world. So it's it's just a great name, and like I said, it's a great metaphor for our Christian walks. It's the closest, similarities, I think, out of all the metaphors that, you hear Jesus use and talk about in the Bible. I think that's probably the closest and resonates the most with me for our Christian walk, because it is very true. That's what we have to do. We have to be removed from the world, so removed from the wild vine, grafted onto his true vine, and then we have to abide and grow and be pruned so that we can bear that fruit. So it's a great name. I like that. I'm glad that this one was in here. So we'll go to the challenge. I'll read over that and we'll kind of discuss it a little bit, and then we'll do the prayer and final study and close out. So the challenge for this one is recognizing our destructive bent towards self-reliance. Jesus urges his followers to remain in me, 5 times in only 8 verses. Today, read John 15, 1 through 8, and reflect on the invitation to savor a close connection to the true vine. Are you as close as he invites you to be? Take a few moments to rest before God. Become mindful of his presence, both in deep moments of worship and in the dynamic movements of your daily life. Throughout the day, recognize his life pulsing through you and energizing you for his work, even as you learn to rest in him. I'm going to read it one more time. Recognizing our destructive bent toward self-reliance, Jesus urges his followers to remain in him five times in only 8 verses. Today, read John 15, 1 through 8, and reflect on the invitation to savor a close connection to the true vine. Are you as close as he invites you to be? Take a few moments to rest before God. Become mindful of his presence, both in deep moments of worship and in the dynamic movements of your daily life. Throughout the day, recognize his life pulsing through you and energizing you for his work, even as you learn to rest in him. So guys, that John 15, that's exactly the verses I was talking about. You know, it's a really great, it's a great chapter. And I mean, I encourage you to go over the whole book of John if you can. But John 15, 1 through 8 is like it's the meat and potatoes. It's the summary of kind of what John was trying to tell us and impart to us about Jesus. So I do definitely encourage you to go read that and check it out if you haven't. And then definitely, as you do, definitely reflect on that invitation, because that is an invitation to come and be close with the true vine, with Jesus. And then I would encourage you, to answer that question. Are you as close as he invites you to be? Because that's the goal, guys. That, as Christians, as born-again believers, that is our ultimate goal, is to be as close to God as we can be. So are you today? Ask yourself that. And if the answer is, yeah, but I want to be closer. Like I feel like, if it's anything like that, like you feel like you could be closer, you think there might be certain areas you need to be closer in, maybe you're unsure, like you think you're close, but you think there might be more, anything of that, any variation of that, more than likely you can be. And I'm going to let you in a little secret. We can always be closer to God. So don't feel weird for having those feelings. Because that's what we're supposed to do as Christians. We're supposed to feel that desire to be closer, to grow closer. And if we don't, then there's a problem. There's something going on. We need to be pruned. We need to go through and find those things that are stopping us from getting that closeness with God and wanting that closeness with him, so that it can be removed and thrown in the trash and burned, because that's where it belongs if it keeps us from God. So I would definitely encourage you, after you read that, to ask yourself that question and take inventory, and then please take that moment to rest in God. Really rest in him. Just sit with him. And I would encourage you to work on the mindful part as well, being mindful of his presence in the deep moments of worship, as well as, the daily movements of life. Because when we start to be able to do that and be mindful of his presence with us, daily, and because he's with you all the time, he never leaves, so in order for us to truly get the benefits of that and of him being with us, we have to become mindful of his presence. We have to know he's there always, and start, kind of retraining our minds to seek him in all situations and feel him, and what he would want us to do. And that is when we'll start feeling that energizing, that energy flowing through us from him, to energize us for his work, even as you learn to rest in him. So that's what it does. While we rest in him, he is giving us that energy, that get up and go, that ready to, get it going and do these things and be the witness that we need to be. So as we rest, he is giving us that power, that energy to do that. And you will begin to feel that energy throughout your day, especially in a more maybe a trying situation or a difficult situation, kind of like what we were talking about the other day, like one of those like just aggravating moments, somebody cut you off in traffic or something like that. We will begin to actually feel him move in us in order to address that situation in the right way and to have that grace with others that he has given us, which is the ultimate goal, is to be able to show that grace to the world so that hopefully we can help lead somebody back to him, because they see that and they're like, how are you so happy, how are you how do you have this zest for life and this, and that's the things that draw people in, because it's not a normal thing in today's world. It's not normal to see somebody just happy all the time, no matter what. It's not normal to just have somebody smiling at you all the time, even if you're sitting there maybe being rude or something, and they're still smiling at you. So that's the kind of behaviors and actions that draw people in to us so that we can share with them why. When they ask, why are you, then that's our opportunity to be like, well, let me tell you why. And you never know what that might lead to. It could lead to someone's salvation. So please, I would encourage you to go read these passages, John 15, 1 through 8. And then do what it says. Reflect, ask yourself that question, are you as close as you can be? Start taking inventory, and then rest in him and let him energize you and fuel you to be ready for the next steps. That is my encouragement for you today and challenge. Now for the prayer, it says, my vine, thank you for being faithful when I and the rest of the world was unfaithful. What we were unable to do, you did perfectly, and you invited us into sweet fellowship with you so that we may learn from you and bear much fruit through the Spirit. Forgive me for trying to produce good works on my own. Help me to rely on you and to rejoice in my connection to you. Always remember that, guys. We cannot do this on our own. It is only through God. And then for the further study, we have Psalms 80, 8 through 16, and Isaiah 5, 1 through 7, if you would like to do a little bit deeper dive for yourself. And like I said, I do encourage John 15, 1 through 8. I encourage you to read the whole book of John, but that's definitely the meat and potatoes chapter. So that's your further reading. If you do want to do a little bit more studying on your own, thank y'all for joining me today. I hope that this video has reached someone today and helped them learn some new things and answer some questions and whatever else it did. I pray for that every day. That's why I do this. So I hope it reached you today. And I hope that everybody's having a wonderful day and that you have a Merry Christmas. And I will see y'all tomorrow.